Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Arrow Digital Strategy Hotel podcast. This installment is all about rates, specifically best practice for setting your best available rate and how to promote the best available rate to get direct bookings. With us today, we have a familiar voice in our marketing expert, Lisa Leahy. Hello again, Lisa.
Hello.
And a new voice with the head of Arrow's digital marketing team, Jason France. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, Richard. Hi.
Hi, good to have you on the podcast. So, we should start off, I think, by defining what we mean by best available rate. I know it sounds obvious, but rates, as we will discover, are complex and myriad. So let's clarify what we will be discussing. Lisa, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So I suppose best available rate is literally what it means. So it's generally tends to be a room only rate or a bed and breakfast rate that all of your other rates are pegged off of. So all your packages, all your upgrades are connected to the best available rate. So I suppose when a revenue manager or a hotel sales director is sitting down to create their rates for the following year, they start with the bar rate because the bar rate is connected to everything else. So it's the base rate that everything works around.
So the other rates could be higher or lower than best available rate.
Generally your best, well, it depends on your strategy, obviously, but generally the best available rate tends to be the highest rate that you want to sell at publicly.
Right.
So you would have it set because you have to take into account that you will be paying large commissions on your best available rate to OTAs. So if you set your best available rate too low, you'll be a huge chunk of that gets taken away by OTAs in terms of commission. So you have to set it at a rate that you're at a rate that you're comfortable with. And also you have to keep in mind that not just OTAs, but also if you're a property that works with tour operators and wholesalers, they will be selling your rates onto their clients. And normally you supply them with net rates, which can be up to 25% off the bar rate. So you have to, when you're setting your bar rate, you have to understand that that's not the rate you're going to end up with. That's, you're going to pay commission on that rate, and you're going to be sending that rate out as a net rate to your tour operators. So it's actually really, really crucial that you set it right. And then the seasonality as well. So, at certain times of year, you're going to have a fairly low bar rate where you want to build your occupancy when you don't, when you might be relying most on the domestic market rather than overseas tourists and things like that. And then at other times of year, you're going to fill come hell or high water. So you are obviously going to maximize your rate and set it as high as possible quite far out. I hope that answers the question.
Well, yeah, it does for sure. Yeah. So we are now in September. Most hotels, or probably all hotels, will have done their rate setting for this year. So what we're saying now is, in terms of strategy, hotels should be looking to research and implement their best available rate for 2025.
Yeah, again, it depends on the property. Most properties, because depending on your client base, like if you're working with groups, you'll be setting your rates probably 2 years out, because groups will be booking up that far in advance. But I think at this time of year, no matter what the hotel or what the strategy, it's a really good time just to review your bar rates for the end of this year, but also into next year, because you're kind of 2/3 the way through the year at this stage. Although every year tends to be different, but you just have to reflect on what's gone so far this year, what went well, what didn't, and then just decide, are we going to make some amendments to our rate strategy for next year. So every hotel should have all their rates up for 2025, and some will have them up for 2026. But it's just a good time to have a look at what you put, what you put in place, and just see, is that still the right strategy?
Okay. And I guess with hotels being 2/3 of the way through the year, they are able to review what has happened this year, or maybe last year as well, and use that as a guide to next year and the year after.
Yeah, exactly. And really, I suppose depending on the property, if you're a property that works with a lot of wholesalers and tour operators, you get your rates are really tied to that. So you don't have a lot of flexibility to change your bar rate at this stage, because you've already issued these rates, which tour operators have put into brochures all over the world.
Yeah.
So you can't think, oh, you know what, we're going to put it up by 30 quid or we're going to take it down by 30. You can't do that. But that's where you can make some other more subtle changes in the background to make sure that you maximize your rate. And some of those kind of things are like, you know, what rates will you be selling on the OTAs, for example? You know, that's where you have more flexibility. So you're a little bit tied with the whole tour operator business, but you have a lot of flexibility in terms of the rates that go out publicly on the internet, basically. So things that, for example, you could just have to maximize your rate and your profit, you could just have a room only rate on the OTA sites and then provide a really good value bed and breakfast rate on your own site, so that you're leveraging the advertising opportunities of the OTAs as much as possible, but you're not necessarily driving all your sales through those channels, because obviously a direct customer is a customer for life. They become loyal to your brand. You have their contact details. You can remarket to them, and also they are a much cheaper customer because you're not paying the high commissions to OTAs. So really that's where you can, I suppose, get into a lot more detail about how you distribute your rates. So you have your bar rate, it's pretty much set, but you know, there's a lot of things that you can do here and there to make sure that you maximize the profits that are coming through to the hotel.
Okay, yeah, and I'll bring Jason in a minute. I just wanted to say that however much their rates have set hotels in Dublin for August next year, I noticed they've shot up dramatically around the Oasis dates for next year.
Yeah,
hotels hotels now charging €600 a night around the 16th and 17th of August.
Very good. So you can just sleep in your car, Richard. You'll be fine.
Yeah, geez. Okay, we won't go down that road. So yeah, I think where Jason comes into this, Lisa, is what you were talking about there. Is, you know, so then around promoting your internet rates, your book direct rates, which, as we've learned, are pegged to your best available rates. So in terms of that, Jason, what options are open to hotels around making sure that the book direct rates are well, minimum on par with the OTAs, ideally less, and also promoting them across internet channels?
Yeah, it's a great question, Richard, and it's something that I think a lot of hoteliers do struggle with. When we're, for want of a better phrase, taking the fight to the OTAs and trying to drive more direct bookings, metasearch marketing really is the platform, the channel that we need to be going through. Now, Arrow actually does metasearch marketing really, really well. One of the best in Ireland for metasearch marketing. And before I go into how we can basically challenge OTAs on this particular channel, let me just peel it back a little bit first for those of us who aren't aware. What exactly is metasearch marketing? So I know the majority of people listening will obviously already know this, but for those that don't, it's the process of getting your hotel listed on a metasearch engine like Google Hotel Ads, TripAdvisor, Trivago, and Kayak. These platforms are pretty much, they pull together hotel information from various online travel agencies, or as we call them, OTAs, as well as your direct website. So this allows potential guests to compare rates and availability in one convenient location. The real ding thought here is, sure, we all want direct bookings, right? So the simplest thing to do is have my direct rate as the best rate, right? But we're kind of jumping ahead there. We will obviously get to that. But essentially, what we need to think of it as is a supercharged comparison tool showing travelers all of their booking options at a glance. And look, we're in an era where nearly 60% of our travelers start their journey with a metasearch engine. So having your hotel present these results isn't just a good idea, it's kind of essential at this point. So naturally, we come to the catch, right? There is, of course, like with all things, a key component that makes or breaks a success in metasearch marketing. So what is that? That's obviously, like Lisa spoke about, rate parity. Cue the impending doom music. Rate parity isn't the scary thing that we think of. It's basically means ensuring that the rates you offer directly in your hotel's websites are consistent with the rates displayed on your OTAs. But why is this so crucial to metasearch marketing and the full tangent to get around there? Well, let's put ourselves in the user side for a second. Just imagine that you're looking for your next hotel stay, which we all do on a regular basis. You know, if you're looking to go to Oasis there, Richard, and you're browsing on any...
Remember, I've got my car, Jason, remember? You know,
Oh, you do
Lisa
indeed.
seems to think I live in my car.
I don't think your car is listed on metasearch engines yet, but we can get it up there if you want without it. But just imagine that you're searching on Google, you come across metasearch engines, whether that is Google Hotel Ads or Trivago or TripAdvisor. And what you see a direct rate that's being offered by the hotel, and you like that. You like the trustability with it. You recognize them. You can contact them. You can likely change your booking pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
That all sounds great. But the rate is higher than the rate offered by an OTA, which is listed right underneath. So your hotel is there, or the hotel you're looking at booking at is there. Right underneath is booking.com. It is, TripAdvisor, Trivago is showing as a different rate, a cheaper rate. Now, the trustability factor with the hotels that you were booking direct with, that used to be such an important factor. But now the likes of booking.com are so obviously have such a trustability factor that it doesn't weigh as much. So now the hotel has not only lost a direct booking, but they will also pay a commission fee to the OTA for that booking. It's really a double whammy and something that we should avoid at all costs. So that feeds directly into the direct strategy that Arrow has, especially with metasearch marketing. And I guess the next, thing that you think about is what's the solution here? What should hoteliers do?
Can I just stop you there for a moment, Jason? Just hold that thought. So you're talking about what is the next thing that a hotel should do when their rate is showing higher. Lisa, can you just explain? So you talked about best available rate. How do those rates, how are these rates then being presented to customers? How does a hotel make its direct rate, which you said is pegged to the best available rate? How do they make sure that that direct rate is lower than the OTA rate?
It's hard to do. I think what I used to do in the past was always have a room only rate only on the OTAs, and then have a B&B rate, so that the rates aren't comparable really, but that the value is seen. So to have a very good value B&B rate, and I mean, the flip side of that is that quite often, with the best will in the world, you distribute your rates and you have parity, but some of the OTAs will show a tax exclusive rate. So they're going to look cheaper, even though when you go through to the channel, the tax is all added on and all that. So you have to keep an eye on that, and that's where keeping an eye on metasearch is essential, because you can see if any of your partners, and they are partners and they're an important part of the marketing strategy, but if they aren't adhering to your agreement, basically. So you might find that sometimes a very odd looking, I'm thinking Agoda or one of those
bo.com as well, hotels.com,
they crop up with a rate where you're like, where did that come from? And like literally you have to become kind of a private investigator at that stage, because if they're undercutting your rate, that's a total no-no. So the easiest thing to do is book the rate, actually make a booking and then wait and see where that booking comes from. And generally you'll find that it'll probably come from via maybe a wholesaler who's selling on to the online travel agent, and then you can contact the wholesaler and say, this rate is coming through, close that channel. We only want our rates to be sold packaged, and they can't be shown on the internet as room only rates. So, you know, there's a bit of a workaround with it, but that is, in my experience, the only way of avoiding others undercutting you.
Okay.
Because, like, I mean, like with the best will in the world, people will go for the cheapest rate, and you know, it's not okay that people sell on your rates to other third parties,
Yeah.
who are then taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of investigative work.
Okay. So
And
sorry
just
to
to add
interrupt.
to that,
Oh, yeah, I was just
sorry.
going to say sorry to interrupt, Jason. There, I just wanted to get the hotelier's perspective, you know,
Yeah.
about how these rates appear on the internet. So from an Arrow perspective, sorry, you know, from a digital marketing agency perspective, do, you know, carry on, please.
No, absolutely, and I think exactly what Lisa said. You know, it can be challenging as well. There will always be rates that are being undercut. This is constantly cropping up. It's a constant cycle of it. What helps is having an agency like Arrow, what we do is we constantly crawl through all of our ads. We make sure that all of our postings and listings on metasearch channels, whether that's GHA, TripAdvisor, Trivago, we check the prices. And if we do see a price violation, we will always report that to the client. Now, importantly, it is the client that has to follow up, similar to what Lisa said from the hotelier side.
Okay.
However, that is one way, and it's a very manual process. The other way is obviously utilizing a software like OTA Insights. And that is a really, really important software that we have. Basically, they're phenomenal tools. They're designed to give you a clear view of your rates, how they compare across various platforms in real time. So just imagine that, an overview of your rates with basically an alarm system if a price violation occurs. That in itself is incredibly valuable. The alternative, obviously, to that is doing it manually. So having somebody, it's far too time consuming for the hotelier to do, but having an agency who manages your metasearch to go in and constantly crawl through as well and make sure that the rates are manually, obviously, best available. The other thing with OTA Insights, another cracking benefit of it, is that it can help you track your performance on your metasearch campaigns. So you can see which channels are driving the most traffic, which channels are driving the most conversions, what your return on ad spend looks like, and how effective your current strategies are. So that's incredibly important, especially from the hotelier side, to see that across all metasearch channels if they're marketing on, like I said, TripAdvisor, Trivago, Kayak. There's a number of channels that they could be working through, and just having that overview is very important.
Sounds
Can
amazing.
I just say as well, just going back to my thing, like when you do book that test rate, you obviously cancel it off afterwards. You don't actually, you know, pay for it and everything, but it's sometimes it really is hard to see where the bookings are coming from. Especially if it's coming through you know, an agent who's using another agent who's potentially using another agent. So yeah, if you are going into the investigative stage of actually booking to see what comes through on your, you know, on your PMS, then yeah, don't forget to actually cancel it afterwards as well.
That's always important.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you've got a nice stay staying somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be a very dedicated revenue manager if you were paying for your own hotel rooms out of your own pocket. Yeah. Of the meta channels that are available, Jason, I mean, you talked about Google Hotel Ads, Expedia, Trivago, Kayak. Are all meta channels equal? Do they all perform equally? Is the one that you would recommend hotels go with above the others, or go with first, shall we say?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, actually. And we get that a lot when we have existing clients or new clients coming in looking to explore metasearch marketing. I would always say the best practice is to start with Google Hotel Ads. It's by far the largest channel on metasearch marketing. I would imagine, you know, about 85% of all of our revenue coming through metasearch marketing is coming through Google Hotel Ads. Okay. It's quite a niche channel for marketing, but it's vital for hotels to be listed on Google Hotel Ads. It gives users that ability when they're searching to actually book through the search page. And it's incredibly important to have there. If you search for any hotel and you see the right-hand side panel, it's always on a branded keyword search. it gives you that ability to look at your specific dates, compare against other hotels while you're still looking at the hotel search page, which is phenomenal. Now, that would be obviously just because of user behavior. That would be why that would be the largest channel beyond the other channels that we have. However, obviously what you want to do is, and OTAs will, sorry, Richard, but OTAs will primarily be on that channel as well. If they're there and they're getting, the bookings are still coming through that channel, you want to be meeting them there. Wherever the OTAs are, really churning out the bookings, you want to be meeting them there, have a presence there, not really just a presence, but actually be at the top of the standings, with, as we've spoken about, the best available rate, as well as, same offers underneath, free cancellation, just so that, from a brand perspective, that you can be seen to be meeting the OTAs there, and give the potential buyer the option of buying directly through you, which saves obviously the hotelier money as well with commission. Aside from Google Hotel Ads, if you're based in Europe or even the US, I would recommend going with TripAdvisor and Trivago next. There's also Bing, but I would prioritize TripAdvisor and Trivago. I spoke about it earlier, but the trustability with these metasearch channels is massive. People go on, and especially TripAdvisor, they have reviews and ratings, not just hotel stays, but they're booking the entire trip through there. And if you're available to be there, which a lot of the US and the EU market is actually going through these channels, they likely wouldn't move away from that channel and go direct to the hotel. So you have to be present there. You have to be meeting the OTAs there and at the top of the listings as well, just like in Google Hotel Ads. Now, there are others, the likes of Kayak, for example, wouldn't be as predominant in Europe, but it would be very important if you're targeting an Asian market, or even to a lesser extent, the US market as well. So I'd kind of prioritize in that order, depending on your budget. Most definitely start with Google Hotel Ads, or GHA as we call it. And from there, expanding out to TripAdvisor, Trivago, and then Bing, Kayak.
Okay, and supposing somebody said, okay, our hotel currently doesn't do any meta search, but we want to go on Google Hotel Ads, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an idea of what that might cost them on a monthly basis and what the expected return might be?
Of course. I would always recommend starting small and having a stop-start threshold method in place. And what that means is, if you get to a certain level of ROAS, for example, a 20 to 1 ROAS, a 25 to 1, whatever you're comfortable with,
that's
you will then
on
increase
ad
your
spend,
budget. Yeah? Correct, yeah, return on ad spend. Yeah. You would then increase your budget. So once you hit a certain threshold, you increase it. Similarly, if you're decreasing, if performance isn't good or what you expected, and your return on ad spend is lesser then you can always decrease your ad spend. Starting off, I would recommend per hotel or per property, starting with a budget of about €300 per month, or dollars per month, depending on where you're staying or where you're located. And then obviously growing from there. I would not recommend staying on that budget, because if you're not growing, you're falling behind realistically. So if you have a very high ROAS, then to increase it. At the moment, the way we work it within the team is, if it's above a 25 to 1 ROAS, that's when we increase the budget or have that conversation about budget increases. And we would be regularly hitting that target. Obviously, it's dependent on market, it's dependent on the client availability. But for the most part, I think it would be very achievable to hit between an 18 to 25 to 1 ROAS, or return on ad spend.
So just to be clear there, so for every euro that the hotel is spending on Google Hotel Ads, they are getting somewhere between 18 and 25 euros back in bookings directly through their own website booking engine.
Correct, exactly. So all of those bookings previously would have gone through an OTA. Obviously, if you have more of a presence on these channels, if you're putting more of a budget there, there's new revenue coming in that wasn't being captured by the OTA. But starting on a small budget like €300 per month, that would be just tackling the traffic that is already there from being captured by OTAs. So those bookings obviously would have been on a much higher commission, whereas obviously when it's coming through direct, it benefits the hotel directly.
Yeah, I mean, we have to say this again. I mean, those bookings, are not subject to 15, 18% commission from the OTA. but B, the hotel now owns that booking. They have direct access to that customer and can market to them again going forward.
Absolutely, it's a win-win. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it might even be a win-win-win, I think. But anyway, look, it's definitely a win-win. So yeah, look, I think I would hope that anybody who is listening to this and doesn't have metasearch set up, that would certainly be an incentive for them to do it. And
yeah, and it's probably actually, Richard, it's probably worth, it's a fairly easy calculation to do, but it probably, because if you're a small independent property and suddenly you're thinking, I need to find 300 a month budget to put towards this new channel, that might be a lot to try and get across the line. But I think if you do the calculation at, look, if we're going to get, if we get, at the moment, we are getting these bookings anyway at an 18% commission. And then you can do the calculation of, okay, we have our, our commission fee to our owned website, which will be pretty low. And then the cost of advertising, you see fairly phenomenally how much sense it makes to direct yourself, to be on that channel yourself. But sometimes you have to make that, you have to, show the figures to the powers that be, because it is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a good point you make there, Lisa, because effectively, although you're paying for the service, I mean, the service includes advertising essentially. Google are putting you on the right hand side in a big panel of any search results, and I know that's kind of what you're paying for, but it's not just being displayed. Your brand is being advertised hugely across this, the biggest search engine on the planet. It's incredible, really, isn't it?
And the searches that are coming through, because it's branded as well, are highly qualified. So that's why the conversion rate for especially Google hotel ads would be so high. The people who search for these key terms are looking to stay at your hotel. They are already going to stay. They're likely already on the way to purchasing, and it's just putting yourself in front of them rather than having an OTA swoop in and capture that and obviously charge a huge amount on commission.
And just taking a bit from both of what you've just said recently, so we're talking about a return of maybe 18 to 25 to 1. You were saying, Lisa, about having to go to the budget holder or the director of the hotel. It sounds like the returns are come through pretty quick. I mean, it's not something you're waiting months for a return on. These bookings start to come through immediately, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. We have an existing client who has recently launched in metasearch marketing. They launched about 6 weeks ago, and immediately they're looking at about 23 to 1 over the past 6 weeks. So it's immediate. It's not like it has to ramp up. If you look at other forms of marketing, other channels like PPC, for example, pay-per-click, with the likes of a new Performance Max campaign, it takes a 6 weeks learning period just to get that audience right. However, with metasearch marketing, it's all about placement. The placement's already there. There's no negotiables there. You're exactly where you need to be. So that revenue just starts flowing straight away. Brilliant.
That sounds amazing. Just to go back to what we started at the beginning with, Lisa, best available rates. It's really important, and any hotel would be told this by Jason and his marketing team and the account manager as well, about promotions, special offers, and would, supposing, I don't know, you're trying to drive midweek occupancy, and you do 3 nights with 2 dinners and bed and breakfast, and you're setting up a promotional rate for that. Would those rates still be tied to the best, or should those rates still be tied to the best available rate?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it depends on the property, but I think across, like in general, that is the case, that all of your packages would be pegged off the best available rate. So generally, if you have the best available rate as a room only rate, then you add on your bed and breakfast on top of that. You add on your supplements for upgrades on top of that. And then your packages are all pegged off that as well. And actually, I suppose for your packages, and this is a great way to try and attract more of the direct bookings, is, you know, you can discount very freely off the best available rate if it's part of a package. So, you know, in the past, if I was ever selling packages as a hotelier, they would have only been on the hotel's own direct site, because you're already discounting them. So you don't want to be adding a discount and a massive commission on top of it. But it's also a great leverage tool for you on your website to showcase what great value you're offering to customers to book direct, and also over the phone for your team. It's great for them to be able to say, look, if you book with me now, you're getting the breakfast for, you know, what, you know, you might decide, you probably have to decide to take a hit somewhere. Normally it's on the room rate, but it depends on how you communicate it to people. So say if you could take 10% off the room rate or something like that for a package, you can say, look, that means that one of you is getting breakfast for free, basically. And also you would normally discount off the bar rate, but make sure that your food and beverage outlets are getting the full allocation, so that you don't end up having to erode the quality that people have when they come to book with you directly. So, you know, if they're buying a package from you, the chef is getting the full supplement for dinner, so they get the full fabulous dinner experience as if they walked in off the street. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can be very clever with, you know, you have your bar rate, but in terms of the supplements that you charge on your direct channels for breakfast, also even the supplements that you have on your upgrade room types, you know, so you don't have to charge the same supplement across all channels. So, you know, there's a lot that you can do. It does make it more complicated, but it's very rewarding, I think, as a sales manager or revenue manager, to see that your direct channel is the largest channel, as it should be. It's very easy to let it all come through third parties, but you're losing, your brand is losing if that is the case. And you have to do a bit more work to get the business direct, but you certainly benefit for it.
Yeah, and I mean that's one advantage straight away that I can see of having a best available rate that everything else is pegged to, is that it's very clear then where your most profitable business is coming from. Because if you have a tour operator rate that's a 30% discount on your best available rate, and you have your book direct rate, which is, I don't know, 10% off your best available rate, you can very clearly see that the best, you know, the book direct channel is giving you much more profitable business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just to go back to the promotions and packages for a minute, Jason, is it possible to display those on Google Hotel Ads, for instance, or does it tend to be just a night, you know, a bed and breakfast rate?
Yeah, we'd normally keep it to the bed and breakfast rate. The most effective strategy by far is to keep it to the best available rate at all times, for simply because you want people to click through that. You know, by and large, the price tends to be the biggest factor. And we've seen that we've run tests with higher ones for click-through rate, but of course OTAs will be keeping the price low as well. So all you see when the data is there, for example, on Google Hotel Ads, you've done your search for your hotel. On the right-hand side panel, you know, you're seeing which provider, which OTA. From the user side, they probably don't recognize that they're OTAs, but which provider is showing which price. And if Booking.com, for example, is showing a much cheaper price, but your price is higher, they would actually have to click into that price to understand that, well, that's actually an offer that they're getting for, you know, 2 nights or for a free dinner or whatever, or free breakfast. However, what we do is we do put copy underneath it just to match OTAs. So if it's a free cancellation, if it up until a certain date, or if it's a free breakfast, we can add those little snippets in underneath. And that is a strategy that some clients do use. For the most part, we tend to keep it to free cancellation because our tests have shown that that's the most effective. And that tends to be as well reflected on OTAs as well, who've undoubtedly done the same tests, and they've shown that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, the psychology of that, isn't it? Because I'm sure, like many people, I've been at hotel receptions when somebody's checking in and, the conversation ensues about, well, do you realize you booked with booking.com and not with the hotel directly? And people are like, no, I just booked the best price on the internet. And say, yes, but
Yeah.
you didn't book it with us directly, and it's usually to do with the fact that breakfast is not included, or there's an extra charge or something, and I suppose that's what Google Hotel Ads is, isn't it? Or meta channels. Essentially, as you say, it's a price comparison, and the only reason I think largely that people book with the hotel directly is because their price is the lowest on the little comparison box.
For the most part, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that would be the same if we think about our own experiences. Why would we go directly to the hotels? Obviously, understanding the industry, we would know that that's the best rate and it's best for the hotels, obviously, or for our clients. But for the most part as well, if you're just a user with no skin in the game, you're going to be looking for the best price. And if you think that an OTA has the best price, if that's what it's showing you, then a lot of people won't do their due diligence and actually check on the hotel's website as well and go direct. So that's why it's the responsibility of the hotels and obviously the marketing agencies that they work with, like Arrow, to make sure that they're promoting their direct booking strategy.
Yeah, and actually, I suppose something in reality that does happen in the back end of hotels. You've got a very busy hotel and all your rooms are booked. Somebody has to allocate each and every one of those rooms. It's actually the worst job in the world for hoteliers. But I would say, now look, it depends on the property as well. But in general, the third party bookings will get the worst rooms, because that person allocating will know we're getting a lot less money direct from this client. We don't know this client. We've had no contact with them. They're looking at their direct bookings or bookings via a trusted third party, like a tour operator or a group tour operator, and they have a relationship there with those people. There is no relationship in advance with a booking that comes through a third party. So they do go to the bottom of the list and they get the worst bedrooms. So just a word of warning, never.
I wasn't aware of that now. That's good enough.
Always book direct.
Another benefit.
Yeah.
I'm never booking through booking.com again. Oh, no, I don't anyway. Sorry.
Of course you don't.
Well, that's a good insider tip, Lisa. Thank you very much. Yeah, I suppose it makes sense, actually. Yeah. It's one of those things that when it's pointed out to you, you're like, oh, yeah, that's kind of obvious. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's something like, I suppose, as an industry, the hotel industry, we probably should tell people that, it's probably a good marketing, a direct marketing tool, but it does happen. Like you have to, as a full hotel, you have to decide, okay, who are we putting into the less fantastic rooms? That's a decision that has to be made almost on a daily basis if you're running at 90+% occupancy.
Yeah. That's great, and it's a good way to end. So I think the takeaways from what you've both discussed are that there's a bit of work involved. In setting your best available rate appropriately for next year and the year after, making sure that you're not being undercut by wholesalers, even going to the extent of making a test booking to see where a rogue rate is coming from. There is a cost implication for going with the meta channels, like you mentioned, maybe starting at €300 or $300 a month. But what I would hope people are taking away from this podcast is the potential returns, which for a small, medium or large independent hotel far outweigh the both in monetary terms and brand terms and marketing terms, what they get back from direct customers. Would you agree that those are the reasonable takeaways?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, as ever, time has flown. We do try to keep these marketing updates to under the 30-minute mark. So, Jason, thank you. Excellent debut on the Arrow podcast.
Hopefully, you'll have me back.
Oh, I think we will. Yeah. And Lisa, as ever, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Please, again, as I usually say, do contact us if you would like to know more, whether it's about best available rate, metasearch, or anything else. My email address is in the podcast blurb. And thank you for listening, and look out for the next Arrow Digital Hotel podcast. Thank you.